YouTube, y'all. Oh man, I really love this video. I really love this topic today because I think it's so. I think it's so pivotal at a time like this in a world like where there's so much going on, right? In a world where so much different. There's so many in today's society. There's so many different voices, right? Like we hear so many different voices, right? Like when we're going through something, right? Or not even about going through something. It's like with social media, right? With social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, Facebook, everybody, that allows all of us to have a voice and to freely express ourselves, right? And that's a beautiful thing. We all deserve the right to express ourselves, right? But what that also does is, at that same token, there's so many different voices. Like there's so many different voices, right? And I think today, we're pulled in so many different directions, right? So when we don't know what to do, right? We might not know what to do. We're in a situation, we don't know how to come about the situation, or we honestly don't have an opinion on something. We may turn to influencers, public figures, or whatever, something that we saw get a lot of buzz on social media on like, okay, this must be the right way to do it. This must be the right way to think about it. Or even like seeking advice, or even pastors and seeking advice, or even in seeking advice or Christianity. Like there is so many different voices, right? Right? Like you have this speaker, and you have this pastor, and you have this influencer, and you have this podcast, and you got all these different things, right? You got all these different things, and what we're doing is we're relying on man. We're relying on man, and we're seeking our wisdom and our guidance on man, right? And we're making decisions on our lives based on the counsel of others, based on what I heard. They said this is how they said, you know what I'm saying? This is how this should go. So, you know what I'm saying? That's how I did it. You know what I'm saying? That's how it's supposed to go. That's what they be saying, do. And I think there's so much danger in that because we're seeking wisdom from everybody, right? And like I said, right, in present day, we're seeking wisdom from everybody in present day because social media, like I said, social media is an outlet that gives so many different voices, right? So many different, everyone has a voice and everyone has opinion. And everyone think they know what's right? And if that's you, right? If you think you hear so many different voices, right? Because what all those voices do, you hearing all them different, you listen to all them different people, all them different voices. What that does is that leads to confusion, and you're living life in confusion. Right? And confusion can lead to anxiety, right? Because you're confused, now you're uncertain. You don't know what to do. You don't know you don't know what's the right way to do things. And you're living your life based on others, people's, or what they feel is right, right? You're making decisions based on what other people's right. And you're not certain. And because you're not certain, you don't know, that later leads to anxiety, right? And people wonder why anxiety is at an all-time high, because in a time like social media, there's so many different voices and opinions, and I can go on a long rant about that, but anxiety and anxiousness is at an all-time high because there's so many different voices and we don't know what to do. And as I'm reading through the book of Exodus, right? Moses was in the same position. I'm gonna tell you who Moses was, right? Moses was a man who led his people out of slavery. And God would speak directly to Moses and instruct his people on what to do, right? He was the leader of his people, and he was the person who heard directly from God, and would direct and take his instructions from God and give it to his people, and his people would listen to him, right? They weren't always the best at listening to him, but they were supposed to listen to him, right? But Moses was just one man, right? And these people, like I said, these people knew the gifting of Moses. So anytime that they're in this nation, anytime there was a dispute or argument, or some differences, the people would take their problems to Moses, because Moses heard directly from God. And look, we're having differences. Hey Moses, what you think about this, right? So like I said, all day and night, people would just line up. There'll be long lines, and Moses would just sit there and settle disputes. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you should do this. All right, boom, next one. So this happened. Oh, okay, all right. Well, I think you're wrong here. Boom, next one. And they would do this from sun up to sundown. He would do this. So on one particular day, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, his father-in-law, the father of his wife, came visit him, and he said, And he observed what's going on. He looked at this whole ensemble like, hold up. This not right. Like, look, I know that you a gifted man from God and all that, but like this whole thing that you doing is not right. Like, why are you sitting around? Why are you know what I'm saying, going through this whole, why are you going through this whole line of people like this while everybody else just kind of sitting around watching you? Cause he's like, look, Moses, you only one man. You can't handle it all. And you gonna wear yourself out and you gonna wear these people out, right? Like this is gonna unfold on you really quickly, and you need to stop this. So what he told him, he said, look, he said, I'm getting a text message, sorry, y'all. He said, look, I'm gonna tell you quote for quote what he said. He said, what are you really accomplishing here? Why are you trying to do this all alone while everyone stands around you from morning to evening, right? So what he told him was, he said, like he said, you're gonna wear yourself out. This job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. And this is where the advice comes in. And this is the part where I talk about all these different voices. He said, now listen to me and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you, right? So, and that's the point I want to stop right there. And then he gave him advice, right? He gave him advice. He told him, like, look, you need to basically, and I'm gonna wrap this. The story don't got nothing to do with the point I'm trying to make here. But anyway, just for the background, the story was that he picked several trustworthy men, and he said, look, let all the trustworthy men, you pick trustworthy men, break the people up into groups, and they gonna handle all the smaller disputes. And anything that's too big for them to handle, they bring it to you so you can lighten the load. But before he even gave him that advice, and that advice actually did work, right? But before he even gave him that advice, right? And basically, and just to kind of break that down, it's kind of like, there's your local judges, and then like there's your higher, what is that called? What is the federal court place called? The federal court, the bureau, whatever, the place in DC, like what is that place? What are the judges called? The big judge, whatever the big judge called. I want to say not the whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, and that wound up working for him basically. So all the big problems they would take to him, all the small issues they would handle. But the whole point of this video is this. So before his father-in-law even gave him that advice, right? Because this is what the father-in-law felt was best, right? The father-in-law, this was his idea, and he felt this was the best, right? But he said before he gave that advice, right? He said, and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you, right? Let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you. And when he finished that advice, right? When he finished that advice, he went on to say, he ended that advice, and he said, word for word, he said, and if, after he got done telling him the advice, he said, and if you follow this advice, and if God commands you so, right? You see how that went hand? He said, if you follow this advice, and if God tells you so, not if you follow my advice. No, it's like, if you follow my advice, if you take what I said, and if God says you so, only take my advice only if God commands you so. So he started off his advice saying, and may God be with you. And he finished it off saying, and he finished it off saying, and if God commands you to do so. And I'm saying that to say, right? We're hearing all this advice, right? And I'm gonna tell you, and I'm saying this to say, how do you discern what to listen to, right? Oftentimes, right, we make the mistake is when we make our decisions and we consult with everybody but God, right? We consult with everybody but God. And there's elders, older people, there's people who are friends and whatnot, like friends and family members and everything. We seek counsel from them, or they give us their advice, right? But that's the problem. People give us their advice, right? Not God's advice, right? Because truthfully, if even myself, if I want to give advice, I'd be like, look, before I give you this advice, like, look, talk to God about it, because this is just me and my wisdom. This is on like the wisdom, the very little wisdom that I have, right? But there's somebody who knows better than me, and if I truly want you to do what's best, I think you need to consult with him, and only do what I say if he says the same. And I think that's what we need to do, right? If we're listening to a lot of times people give, like I said, people are giving advice, and they're giving, like, they're giving advice based on their pride and what they think is best, on what they experience, right, and what they've been through in their life. Well, I think this is best because this has worked for me, and this makes the most sense, right? But if God has a different plan for you, right? Well, what if God, like I said, what if God has a different plan for you? Like, my advice works for me, and this would make sense to me. But what if God tells you something totally contrary to what the rest of society may say? Then what? That makes sense? Like, what if God wants you to go a whole different route than what the rest of the world, what makes sense to the rest of the world, or what the rest of the world may tell you to do? What if God truly is telling you this because he knows best, right? And the problem we're making is, right, like, even his father-in-law knew, like, look, only take my advice if God tells you to do so, right? And we need to do the same thing. If we're going to take somebody's advice, right, like, we need to take it up with God first, right? Because God truly has his best. God has all wisdom. He's all power and all knowing. He knows any situation or any situation that we're in. He truly knows what the future holds. So if that's the case, we really need to take it up with God, right? And if we're going to be giving advice, to someone, tell them truthfully, all right, this is how I feel, but I think you need to talk with God. Like, don't listen to me after you talk to God. You know what I'm saying? Like, only, like, you take it up with God. And if God says if you feel in your heart there's unpeace based on what I said, you know what I'm saying? If you feel there's certain unpeace with your spirit based on what I said, then don't take it, right? But once you take it up with God and there's a certain peace there, and you feel as though God does you the same way, then you need to go with it, because the truth be told, God's not going to tell me something that he's not going to tell you, that he hasn't already been telling you, right? So that makes sense. So if you're the source, if you're the person that God wants to talk to, right? If you're the person that God wants to talk to, why would he tell me something and not tell you if it's for you? No, right? Like, you ever notice when somebody give you advice, you get that certain conviction, you be like, and it's the truth, and it might be the hard truth, and we don't want to hear it. But the reason we feel that way, because we know it's true. And you know why we know it's true? Because we've heard it before. We've been already feeling this. We've already been contemplating this, right? And when somebody tells us something, that hard truth that's within that we hear, it's like, I've been already thinking it, and I don't want to do it, but in our heart of hearts, we know this person's right. And you know what makes sense? And what we want to do all the times is we want people to tell us what we want to hear, right? Like, for example, let's say I'm a drinker, and I know I'm supposed to stop drinking, and I've been feeling in my heart to stop drinking, right? And then I've been feeling this urge to stop drinking, and somebody comes along and tells me, like, hey bro, honestly, bro, I think you got a problem, right? And I feel it. I'm like, oh, dang, I feel that, right? And once I take that up with God, once I take that dispute up with God, it's like I probably should take that counsel, because God's already been telling me that, right? Or, for example, if I've been feeling the urge to, let's say I've been feeling the urge to quit my job and start a business, and I've been kind of having that urge, but I haven't told nobody, right? I haven't told no one, and it's been on my mind. And then someone comes out the blue and like, hey man, like, honestly, bro, I think you need to take that leap of faith and start your business and quit your job. We like, oh, dang, like, and we might even fight him, like, nah, bro, nah, bro, how am I pay my bills? How am I gonna do this? Bro, you crazy, bro. I need the income, bro. I can't do that. But like, we felt that certain conviction, because truth be told, something's been already telling us, someone higher than us has already been telling us that. And the reason that what they said struck a chord in us, because that makes sense, because we've been already told that, right? But that's when we talk to God, and that's why his father-in-law told him, like, look, only take my advice when you talk to God. But I'm gonna take it on that other note. If someone tells me to quit my job and to start a business, and God haven't been telling me that, and you think and God haven't been telling me that, and once I take it to God, I still feel like that's not the case, then I'm not taking that advice. God, you know what I'm saying? God don't think I should quit this job. You think I should quit this job. You know what I'm saying? You think I should take this leap of faith. And I trust God more than I trust you, because, you know what I'm saying, if I fail, if I feel, I'm not gonna look at God like, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be looking at you like, yo, well, like, what's up? You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to give somebody else that much authority, and I don't want to give someone else that much authority over my life, because the one who truly owns my life is my Father in heaven, right? So I'm gonna make my decision based on my Father in heaven, because only He truly knows what's best for me. So I want to say, in the time where there's so much, where we're hearing so many different voices, right? When we're hearing so many different voices, only accept advice from our Father in heaven. And sometimes our Father in heaven may speak through people, but like I said, God's not going to tell somebody something that He hasn't already told you, or is trying to tell you. You know what I'm saying? Like, He hasn't already told you, or He's in the attempt to He's trying to tell us something, or we just not open, our pride just not open, our hearts just not open to hearing it. But He's been trying to tell us that, right? So that's only in those conditions where I'm taking advice, and I'm not saying, and I'm open to hearing it. I'm open to hearing advice from somebody, but truthfully, the one I'm trying to hear from is God, and God just may give advice through somebody else, but He's not going to tell them something that He hasn't already told me. And I'm not going to put my faith in man. I'm going to put my faith in my Father in heaven. Man, I love y'all, and I hope this video helps out a lot, man. Peace.